Commission. Before we get started, I would like to ask you to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation given by Mr. Colbert. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we just come before you tonight, thanking you for the opportunity to be here to represent the city of Springdale, Lord, to lift up the things that come before the city. Would you help us with wisdom, Lord, that we make the right decisions for the best course for the city. Lord, we ask you to watch over the men and women of our armed forces, the governor and his staff of the state of Arkansas, the mayor and his staff of the city of Springdale, Lord. And we thank you for the law enforcement and the fire protection we have here, and we ask that you watch over them and keep them safe. In Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
I'll call the meeting to order. Is this thing too loud?
Do we have an echo?
A little bit. We'll start with roll call, please.
Howard Austin.
Here.
Mark Cloud.
Here.
Gary Compton.
Here.
Roy Covert.
Here.
James David.
Here.
Shannon Mueller. Peyton Parker.
Here.
Ben Peters.
Here.
Dale Tyler.
Here. Next is approval of the June minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion, Mr. Colbert.
Second.
Second, Mr. Peters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion, minutes are approved. We'll start with tabled items. First is C 2209. Developing Equity LLC, presented by ESI.
I don't have a whole lot to add to this item. I'm here to answer any questions y'all might have, but I think it's tabled, if I'm understanding correctly. Is that what that means?
Oh, I don't think this.
This one,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I understand. Yes, so what we're proposing here is a tandem lot for the lift station for this development. It's that Springdale Water's request.
Are y'all able to hear us? Because we can't hear you.
Okay. Do we have somebody on Zoom taking care of those who are trying to get in and they can't hear us? We're checking on it.
Thank you.
so we go to staff comments.
Well, Rick just went out.
Oh.
Sharon, do we have any comments on this one? This one's pretty simple in that it's just that area where the lift station is being transferred, and that area that is around is common area.
Yes, ma'am.
That's part of the subdivision, so there's really not a whole lot of comments. It does have access from a public street. This one's pretty simple.
Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for vote, Mr. Colbert.
Austin.
Yes.
Cloud. Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Staff will prepare the resolution that goes to council on the 26th. Oh,
No, do I? Oh, you can't. You're not on here, so no, you can't.
Oh, okay.
But I'll write you in and you can vote. I'm sorry.
I'll vote yes.
I put you down, sorry.
Next is public hearing, rezoning. R 22-42, Juan and Maria Silva, presented by Juan and Maria Silva.
Yeah, we're just here to rezone, change from a C2 to C6, and answer any questions you guys have about it.
Staff comments?
the land use plan indicates regional commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan and is recommended for approval. Improve the city's economic base and tax structure through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations. Ensure adequate land allocation for commercial areas in sufficient size and in proper locations. And encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the residents and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission?
I'm sorry. There's an older building on the property. What are your plans for that building?
No plans, just open a car dealership there.
You're gonna use the building that's there for offices,
Yeah.
right? And you're not doing automotive repair or anything like that. You're selling vehicles,
No, just sell them. Yeah, just
Right.
display them and sell them.
right? And minor detailing in that it's just washing and cleaning them out and that kind of stuff. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay. But remember, that's anything that's allowed in a C6 zone, which is pretty limited, can go on at that location. But that's pretty much it.
Any other comments? Be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote, Mr. Peters?
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin.
Passes 8-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 26th.
Thank you.
Next is R 22-43, Iglesia Pentecostes Nueva Jerusalem. Presented by Halp and Associates.
Hi, I'm John Easterling with Half and Associates. We're here to rezone this property from single-family and it says SF1 and C2 currently to strictly C2. Here to answer any questions that you guys have.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan doesn't cover this area because it was previously part of Bethel Heights. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Improve the city's economic base and tax structures through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations, assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size and in proper locations, and encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the residents and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote, Mr. Peters?
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 26th.
Next is R 22-44, Augustin and Maria Lopez, presented by Eduardo Velazquez. Mr. Velazquez?
Is there anybody online that might represent this?
We'll come back to it a little bit later. We'll go to R 22-45, PP 2209. Jerry and Deborah Martins, Grace Crossing, presented by ESI.
Is it red? Red is good. Okay. Sorry, Blake Murray with ESI. Proposing a PUD and associated preliminary plat for this tract of land. It's around 19 acres. Currently, a large part of it's unusable due to floodway, floodplain areas on site. The part that we are developing is, if you look at the overall density, we're proposing 46 buildable lots on the 19 acres, which comes out to about 2.32 units an acre. The comprehensive land use map shows it as medium density residential. You know, it's what's proposed is definitely, you know, the smaller lots, higher density in one area. It's almost, call it a conservation subdivision in some other parts of northwest Arkansas, but trying to maintain, you know, the existing waterways and the aesthetics associated with it. That's a pretty area. Additionally, I mean, yes, there are 2 access points, one coming off Harbor and one coming off Gene George. Both of those are major collectors, so I shouldn't have any issues with capacity on either street for this development. So high-density development right next to 2 roads, but a low-density development overall when factoring in the entire acreage. So I would like to go ahead and address a couple of things that we had in the staff report on it as well. A 24-foot street or alley actually is proposed on this. The master street plan doesn't have a 2-way alley associated with it, so hence the PUD. I mean, we already have a main street or 2 main streets that these buildings will front off of. So the houses will face Harbor and Gene George, and then on the other side of the road they'll face the waterway, which I think will present a unique aesthetic to the area. We would have normally gone with a smaller street section. We had pre-application meeting and 24-foot was requested for firefighting purposes. So that's what we're proposing, what we'd like to see. I'm happy to discuss that though in more detail as questions come up. We do have a pond proposed. It's on the other side of the creek. There's a rather large drainage basin, as you could, consider coming off site and running onto it. So the pond is over there. We do have a POA and park area with some amenities there in that triangle. And then overall, I mean, there's 12 plus acres of open space here. I mean, it's trying to preserve all of that great aesthetic of this part of the property. So I don't really have anything else to add. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Staff comments?
As he stated, the adopted comprehensive land use plan does indicate medium-density residential use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan. Protect positive aspects of neighborhood character, appropriate locations for single-family and multifamily residential development should be provided based on accessibility, site suitability, utility availability, neighborhood compatibility, and environmental factors. Encourage the development of a variety of housing types appropriate to the size and income of all housing and living, working in Springdale. So the density and the type of development is appropriate. There are several questions about the PUD document itself that I think really need to be addressed before we move this thing forward. Every lot has to have frontage on a public street or an approved private drive if it is the intention of you to sell those lots. So that really can't be handled as an alleyway. It needs to be a dedicated public street. And I'm assuming that you want it to be dedicated to the city.
Ideally, yes.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
because in your PUD document, some places you refer to it as a street, some places you refer to it as an alley, and so we need to be consistent in the document itself as we move forward with this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You indicate that the time frame is to complete infrastructure construction in 12 to 18 months. What's the time frame? And it doesn't indicate in here when you think the project will be developed out. That needs to be added to the PUD document itself. There's several issues that we need to address. You can't use the name Gray Avenue because that conflicts with the street already in town. So
Okay.
it needs a different street name, and I don't know if that's going to change the name of the PUD itself, but you need to think about that. You need to submit the list, proposed name so that we can check it before we get too much further along. You indicated that the lots, which would be 2 through 27, will actually front onto Gene George and Harbor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then the other will front onto the parkway-like setting or the park to the southeast of this, okay? You're indicating a front setback of 0 to 15 feet and a rear setback of 15 feet. So my question is, if we are trying to create a consistent look along the streets, why is it not set as this is the build-to line and each of the structures have to be at that build-to line? Why is there a 0 to a 15-foot variance there? Because we're not creating a consistent look if they're not all down through there in the same location.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask questions, and these things are gonna have to be addressed. When I get finished with these few questions, I'll tell you what my recommendation is.
All right.
Lots 2 through 27 technically have two fronts because they have to have frontage on a public street. So we determined that's a public street. That will actually be a front setback, but it's going to be the rear of the structure, correct? Okay, you're proposing again for that to be 0 to 15 feet. If you put a garage at that 15-foot build to line, there's not enough space to park two vehicles in the driveway.
Sure.
And there is no indication for any parking on this street for visitors. Where are people gonna park? And there's no provision for additional parking on the street. Now, was it your anticipation that there would be parking on one side of the street or on both sides? And how's that gonna be taken care of? That needs to be addressed. Lot 28 is a common area, so that's a pretty large area, and you have a POA established to take care of all of that, or does the POA only take care of that lot 39? So something needs to be addressed about lot 38. You said something like a conservation type subdivision. Are you anticipating that becoming a conservation easement? If so, that needs to be included in the PUD document. We need to know how that all is going to be maintained. Not only the lot area where you're putting the few amenities that you're adding to this subdivision. For an area this large, that's not very many amenities being added to the subdivision. And how will all that be maintained? How will the area in the floodway be maintained? How often is it going to be mowed? What's it going to look like? Those kind of things is not addressed. The master trail plan shows the Pride of Springdale Trail going along the creek, and I don't see that on here anywhere. At least the easement for it needs to be dedicated with this subdivision, if not constructed with it. When you go into the PUD document itself, the first page says Cadence Crossing PUD concept and narrative. Looks like it was cut and pasted, so I'm not sure you addressed all the issues on this one that needs to be addressed. So my recommendation, because there's a lot of things that need to be addressed in this document, that this be tabled and let staff work with the developer to get this development plan written out like it needs to be before we bring it before the planning commission to look at. I think there's lots of things that need to be taken care of. One thing, the covenants has a 30-year lifespan. So the PUD document itself needs to have all those details out of the covenants into the development plan, so we now know what we're getting from now on, how this PUD's gonna work. That's how a PUD functions. Parking needs to be addressed. The build-to lines need to be identified. There needs to be a maintenance on that 0 lot line for each one of those lots, because you gotta be able to maintain your property line. And will there be eaves that overhang into that maintenance, into that 0 lot line? Or is the wall actually gonna be set back off of that lot line? All of those details need to be identified in here so we know what we're dealing with. Again, parking, I think, is a major issue. The way it's designed, I don't see that there's adequate parking. If you have visitors, where they're gonna park, they can't park on the street. Harbor and Dean George is not possible to be there. You include as a use unit the cultural, recreational, and health facilities. I'm assuming that's just the recreational facilities that are in the amenities?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you need to identify that that's the only use unit functions that can be there. You're not having the possibility of any of those units being used for an office or a medical facility or a cultural facility or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that needs to be identified. You have samples of what the structures are gonna look like, but the document itself needs to say, are they going to be 25% brick, or can they all be all hardy board? There's no idea of what. Samples are good to look at, they look really nice. But 10 years from now, when they're not all built out, we all need to know exactly what they're gonna look like. It also has to have the ability for the city to participate in the covenants, and all that has to be taken care of. I can go on. Do y'all want me to go with more details, or do we wanna take action
Table it.
on?
Just
table
Do you
it.
want to ask for it to be tabled? Or do you want them to go through the rest of the details?
I'd love to discuss a little bit, if possible. I mean, if there's other staff comments that we want to go over as well, I'd love to get y'all's input as well. Obviously, our client likes the layout, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions, and then make a decision after that, if that is okay.
Any more comments?
Well, there's a few more things, but they're all basically on that same line. There's just not enough detail to ensure that what we're getting is what we all know. I mean, if you look at Harbor Meadows, I think we're trying to get to that. But we want to make sure that we have written in the PUD document itself the requirements to make sure that happens once that property's sold and moves on. And so that's the whole reason for why we go through all this exercise. So. You got some topics you want to comment on?
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, obviously, we use, as you can see by us not changing the name on that one document, we use, PUDs that have been approved recently to help us generate these documents. And in those instances, a lot of these things were not an issue. That's fine that they are now. I did not do the responses to your comments, Patsy. Daniel Lazenby did, so I can't answer all the questions that you have now on whether or not they were in the comments from before. And if they are, I apologize that they weren't addressed. If they aren't, I wish we could have had some communication before the meeting to go over some of these things.
Well, we did discuss a few of the things.
Okay.
But this is a totally different type of PUD than what Caden's Crossing was, because all of those lots fronted on a public street.
Sure.
These are all accessing from the rear. We're creating a different situation. It's different than what it is in Harbor because they have a street in the front on both sides. We don't have the same situation here, and we just need to make sure it's all tied down.
I'd ask a question of, do you need public street frontage in a PUD?
Well, you're going to transfer a lot, correct?
I'm going to transfer a lot?
You're going to sell one of these lots, or are all these lots going to be owned by the same person?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to transfer a
Okay,
lot.
to subdivide a piece of property, it has to have frontage on a public street.
Okay.
We haven't done a PUD yet that there was not frontage on a public street if the property was going to be subdivided.
Sure. And that could be on me. I've done it in other cities before. I didn't think that was a big deal at all. I'm fine not calling this a drive or a alley and calling it a private street if that's what it takes to where we can split the lots and move
Okay,
forward.
you can call it an approved private street if you want to. That means the PUD has to take care of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that has to be figured in the structure. Then we need to see in the POA that there is a strong enough organization that has been established that can afford to maintain the street if it's not going to be dedicated as a public street.
Understand.
But you will still have to dedicate an access easement and utility easements through there. And then we still have to make sure that we have room for places for people to park and that we have that consistent look of where all the houses are going to front.
Understand.
Okay?
These will have garages and driveways, obviously, well, we don't see the rear on any of those, do we?
Mm-mm.
That's not helpful.
See, we don't have anything that shows that what the back looked like.
Sure.
And are you still proposing that it would be 15 foot from the edge of the right of way or the edge of the easement?
No, ma'am. I mean, I think Fire had a good comment of making it 20 feet, and I'm willing to concede that. I mean,
Okay.
our goal is to not be within 20 feet, obviously, so we can get a car parked out front. So I think there's room for a garage. I think there's room for a driveway to handle the parking. And we would have been fine with something like the 29-foot paving section that has the parking on one side. Just to make it work, we needed a 30-foot right-of-way. We were aiming for connectivity, which is how we ended up where we ended up. So,
But you only have a sidewalk on one side.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
To be fair, though, I mean, we have a sidewalk along Harbor and Jean George as well.
But can we go back to that picture with it looks like there's one of those elevations that shows the back of the building. So it's a detached garage. Go to the next one. See that on the top row, that house on the end, is that the front or the back of the house?
I think those are all fronts.
Okay, so is it a detached garage or is it an attached garage, and what does it look like? What does the footprint look like?
I will pull those up while I continue to get questions on that. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have that one pulled up right now.
Okay, so what is the overall length of the house? And are they 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom? I mean, how many bedrooms do you have? And how many of each type of number of units?
Sure. I mean, and if we didn't get you floor plans, that's obviously on us. We should have had that in there. So,
I haven't seen any floor plans, so I don't know how they fit on the lots.
okay. POA maintenance, I don't see an issue with them maintaining that area.
Both areas?
I don't see an issue with that. I think we're leaning towards tabling tonight, which I think is probably a good idea based on the comments that we're receiving to kind of regroup and make sure we're on the same page with y'all.
So are you asking for it to be tabled then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think the rest of the things we can work out over the phone, just kind of talk through, make sure we're on the same page.
No, you need to set up a meeting. We need to sit in my office and let's go through the details.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
So yes, with that, I request the table.
okay.
One comment from me, not that it means anything, but I would like to make sure you guys incorporate that trail system, all that raw land that you're not going to develop anything because it's part of the water, overflow. To me, for something like this, if you're proposing something like this, I think incorporating that green space is critical in my opinion. I don't know about anybody else here, but I think that's one way to make this worthwhile.
So those here that were in concerning this item, it will be tabled to the next meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in August. It will be at the front of the agenda. Okay? So everybody knows. You probably need to go up to the microphone because it doesn't get on the recording and we get fussed at if we don't have it all in there.
Yeah, please state your name and address,
It's on the
please.
second.
Rick Harris, my wife Janet, 6100 Nancy's Vista Terrace, which is in Harbor Meadows, which is right above this, overlooking this. We have a 4-acre lot with a 13-foot deep pond in our backyard, which is very private right now. That flood zone, my understanding of this, I talked to the realtor that had this listed at one time, and I was really curious what was going to be going on. So my understanding of this, he said it's a 20-acre lot and that 11 acres of it is in a flood zone. Now, we watched a couple of years ago up on Harbor Avenue, a little white Honda flood out on Harbor Avenue, flooded out in the street. Water was that deep over that. I want to know how that's going to affect our lot when they build this up and do whatever that takes. What's that going to do to the topography of that entire area? And what's that going to leave us with there overlooking that? Very curious what that public area is. And Patsy, to your point about these questions and what have you, I'm like, thank you for bringing it up. I kind of want to make sure to understand the timeline of it before it gets too far down the line.
Okay, we have to get it zoned first with the site plan
Right.
that we know will work.
Right.
And then they will have to do the detailed engineering. Included with this tonight was a preliminary plat where we would discuss how the drainage is gonna be handled, all that kind of stuff. We're tabling all that stuff so that we can get the PUD document ready. I think there are gonna have to be some changes into the design itself.
Yeah.
And so when we get through all that stuff, when we come back the next time, we will have addressed some of those issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, now he indicated they were gonna do a detention pond, I guess on the other side of the creek. That's what he said. So we'll have to see how that impacts the area around it. I don't know if their preliminary drainage report even addressed that yet or not. And Katie may have looked at it, so, we have an engineering staff that'll go through all that stuff and have the answers for that kind of stuff.
And at this point in time, this is how many lots on how many usable acres?
46 lots on 19 acres.
And of which 11 of it is in a major flood zone?
There's a major portion, it's about 2.1 units per acre. The density's not the issue. The issue is how do we set it on there and make it work, how it's going to be accessed, and how is it handled with the drainage that goes through there. They can't build in the floodway, we know that.
Yeah, well, the questions you were talking about, is like, you put garages, and we overlook this. So I see this massive humanity and cars and what have you. that we're gonna be overlooking when they finish up a project and go home and pocket their money. We're sitting here living with, we got $1 million house sitting there that ain't
Well,
worth that anymore.
What you're gonna see from
Overlooking
across
this.
that way is the front of the structures. All of those that front onto that. Then you'll see the back side of the houses on the other side that front out onto the street. That's what they're proposing to do.
Right.
I mean, it could be all backs where you
See,
see all the backs,
I can
but at least
see
it's a little bit
over
better
the
than that.
ones in front. I'm gonna see the backs of the ones
Well,
up on the roundabout.
That's the terrain that's there that we have to
Yeah.
deal with. And so
Yeah.
all that has to be dealt with
Yeah,
as we
that's-
look through the details of how the subdivision is built and what the elevations of the structures, where they're gonna be sit, how are they gonna sit on the lots and what kind of screening. We haven't even talked about what kind of screening or anything they have to do. And technically, there's not anything that needs to be, that is required for screening, but with a PUD, you can get some of that other stuff. And we need to sit down and talk about those details too.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Okay? We got some other questions? We might as well hear the questions.
Okay,
while
go
we're
ahead.
here.
Go up to the microphone and please state your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Thompson. I live at 6058 Wells Circle. We also overlook the proposed property. My question, there is a large electric line that runs right along the back. How close can you build? And will those have to be moved, or what will happen to those electric lines that are right behind my house?
Nothing happens with those. They say just where they
You
are, they
can
can't
build
in
right
that
up
easement.
under them?
I'm sorry?
You can build right up under them?
Oh, no, they're not building on that easement at all.
Okay.
Now, some of that open space that's open there today will stay as it is, but they can't build under those power lines.
Okay.
No.
And then my other concern is the traffic. When school lets out, both going and coming, that road is Harbor is extremely, extremely busy. It's very difficult to get out on. And I don't know, will that be addressed also,
Well,
the traffic?
we know what they're proposing is 46 lots and, they can, I'm sure engineering will assess what kind of impact that has on the streets themselves. They can't access it at the roundabout, and it is quite a distance from the roundabout on both sides. So that's something that engineering will have to look at as we go through this review too. I haven't heard any comments that it creates a problem up to this point.
Well, I would just like to say what Mr. Harris has said, that, we overlook that. When we purchased the home, it was agriculture. We thought it was going to stay that way, and we have a huge investment in that area. And, I didn't know that this was going to happen when I purchased the home.
It wasn't part of the PUD when the PUD was put in. So you have to assume if it wasn't part of the original Harbor Meadows PUD, that it would be developed sometime. The PUD itself for Harbor Meadows sets the conditions for what can be done in that. But this acreage was never included in that.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I'm Curtis Leister, 6735 Appleshed Avenue. I don't look at it. But 6225, that's Springdale City's lots. The Illinois River Watershed Partnership planted trees there 10 years ago, and you got a beaver family living there. Wanted you to know that, how you're going to address that. And right north of that, the Harbor Meadows, we repurposed native meadows right there, and we have a butterfly monitoring larvae project going on there. The Sparta Springdale is going to be a bike trail, walking trail. It's going to go from Harbor Avenue straight across all the way to the Market Center of the Ozarks, right? In the future, that's all part of the plan. This could probably be something better. This is Harvey Jones's last piece of property. Harvey Jones doesn't get remembered too much around these spots, but the Bernice Jones Elementary School is just about 100 meters to the west. Students could be walking there and crossing Ireland Street and doing a nature preserve there, or even a community garden or a soil academy. Fayetteville has something called Apple Seeds. Bentonville, in their Osage Park, they have a beaver. Why can't we have that kind of a thing going on here and be a part of the Market Center of the Ozarks? So, there.
Thank you all for your comments.
And it will be the first on the agenda at the next meeting, which is, you said April the 2nd. I'm August the 2nd. I'm not ready for it to be summer. I'm still back into the spring. I guess it's gonna be August.
Next, we're going to move on to, looks like C22, it's public hearing. C22-11, Ryan and Sarah McLean, presented by Earth Plan Design Alternatives.
I'm James Gertz with EDA, here to answer any questions you have on this tandem lot split CUP.
Staff comments?
Do we have any staff comments?
Any comments from the audience?
I mean, you are proposing for the driveway access to be paved. You didn't ask for a variance, right?
Correct.
Okay. And it'll be paved in that location all the way up to that second lot. You will have to apply for a driveway cut because there's not a driveway at that location. Engineering will work with you to make sure that the drainage is an issue because I understand from the adjacent property owners, there's a lot of water comes down through there. We want to
Correct.
make sure it doesn't back up in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? This will be a call for vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote, Mr. Culver.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, goes to council on the 26th. You may want to go over the table items because we didn't do that at the beginning in
Okay,
case there's
I'm sorry,
anybody.
you're right.
We didn't even think about it.
We have items that have been tabled. Looks like two of them. FB 22-02, Big Emma, and C 22-08, Yahweh on Jesus Church. So those items will not be heard tonight.
They will be on the first of the agenda under tabled items at the next meeting.
Now we'll move on to preliminary plats, replats, and final plats. Start with PP 22-07, LEX Estates, presented by Swope Engineering. Anyone from Swope Engineering? We'll try that, come back to that later. Next will be PP 22-08, Deer Creek Revised, presented by ESI.
Hello again, Blake with ESI. You might go into the plat page. This project was approved for y'all last year, making some minor modifications to it and coming back. Phase 1 is staying the same. Phase 2, we got rid of a street crossing over a creek. It was an issue for a few reasons, obviously drainage, grading, and utilities as well. The sewer's already pretty deep there, so having to fill enough to get roads and stuff over it was causing infrastructure to have to be removed and replaced. Just got difficult for constructability purposes on some of it. Can you go to the next? Yeah. The first cul-de-sac street right there was always proposed, on the south side, was always proposed that way. It's the next one up that used to cross the creek there and tie into the street that ties into, is that 48th?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But that's the connection we removed because of the reasons I just said. So really, I mean, those are the only things that changed with this. Still tweaking and working on the grading, but this was our intent, was to get this revised for constructability purposes. Happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Did you reduce or increase the number of lots? Are we still, what was the number of lots before and what do we have now?
I do not have that exact number. It is a reduction though from what we had before. We have less street frontage, we have less lots, but it's only a couple. I don't know that exact number off the top of my head.
I think, Sharon, do you have some comments?
Yeah, I was trying to look for that total lot numbers. Planning only has standard comments for this preliminary plat revision.
Engineering have comments?
We have no comments on the plat revision. We'll save our full review when we get a new construction set.
Ed, you have some comments? You want to go to the plat itself, because I think that's his concern.
The only concern that the fire department has is this thing was supposed to connect to an 8-inch main line extension that's supposed to run down 48th Street. I'm sorry, I'm talking to the wrong mic. This is supposed to connect to an 8th Street. Now, my understanding is there is a large diameter distribution main that is supposed to run down 56th Street. But I don't know what the time frame of getting that built is. And we just wanted to let the builder know that we could get into a situation where we don't have sufficient fire flow to build out the last houses on the lot. Because if we don't have 1,000 gallons per minute, we can't just start building houses because it'll hurt the city's ISO rating.
So they won't get building permits? We're not just talking about certificate of occupancy, we're actually
We're
talking
talking about
about.
building permit. We need to have
permits
some water.
themselves.
We need to know we need to have some proof, either an engineering dynamic model calculation to show that we're gonna get 1,000 gallons per minute at the end, because if we start allowing them to build houses where we don't have sufficient fire flow without a sprinkler system, there's a variance, you can drop it down for a sprinkler flow, then we'll end up with an issue with it. It may or may not, but those are the sort of things, it doesn't take one, but it takes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, next thing you know, you got an ISO rating starts to drop on you. That's our main concern, is to maintain that insurance rating.
So in the phasing plan itself, can that be established where we know we can handle what the fire flow can handle, and the next phase would only be moved forward?
We're comfortable if they run that main line extension, that they'll probably have sufficient water.
Blake, can you address that issue?
With running the water main with the next
All the way down
phase.
48th Street on phase 1.
Phase one's already built. We're in the final plat, or in the process of it.
Phase one of this has already been built?
Yes, well, phase one is under construction. It's, should be final platting next month or before y'all next month. All the streets are cut in. This is a revision to preliminary plat. Phase one is not changing from the original approved plans.
Okay, so is phase one gonna have 90% of water and sewer in and 90% of the streets completed for a final plat?
Before we turn it in, yes, ma'am.
Okay, everybody know, that's what he said. Okay?
Don't hold me to that. I know
It's
I'm
in the record
recorded.
right now, okay? Got it.
I can speak for myself. I can't speak for other members of ESI, Patsy. It's,
No, you can't back up now, you already got it. And you say representing ESI, so you already got it.
Right.
Okay. Just so when I tell them they can't go on, everybody heard it right here, okay? Got it? Steve?
With this revision, I'm showing 259 lots with 254 being buildable.
259 lots this time? Okay. And that access to 48th Street is in the second phase? Like,
I'm sorry.
the access to 48th Street is in phase two?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I know there's a lot going on with this. It's a big development, but yes, the access will be in phase two, because that'll be required for fire.
Okay. It's a huge subdivision, guys.
Yeah, maybe I can clear some of this. The confusion comes in that this was a revision that was made through just a submittal. It didn't go through this body, didn't go through the fire department. So we didn't catch the fact that there may not be enough water at the end of that water main.
Which presents a problem when revisions are made on engineering plans and not on the original documents that happened. So it should be noted that if you are making revisions to the layout, it needs to be submitted prior to submission of construction documents, because that puts us all in a bind, having not had a chance to look at it till the construction plan come in, okay?
I will, to put the fire issue to bed, I will talk with our developers and ESI's owners for us to be on the same page with fire, or we'll provide the model. So we'll either build the water main with this, or we'll provide a model that is showing that there's adequate capacity for phase one.
Okay, so why would we be doing a revised preliminary plat till we have that? What's the rush in getting this revised preliminary plat done right now that we don't have that information to look at when you ask the planning commission to revise the preliminary plat?
Sure, I mean, that's a good question. To me, this is a pretty small detail. I mean, either we extend the water main immediately or we provide a model that shows that it works.
Well, if it was that simple, why wasn't it done when the revision was submitted?
Well, as you're aware, preliminary plats, we typically don't do that much engineering. I mean, we check to make sure we're meeting all the code, we design the streets, but we don't go into detail like water modeling. I mean, that's in-depth stuff that we want to know that the layout's going to be approved first before we go into that, which is why we don't turn in construction plans in Springdale.
Okay, and then if it doesn't work like you laid it out, you should have submitted, and that's where we are now as a preliminary plat, but we should be able to address those issues, asking the planning commission to revise this preliminary plat, I would think. That doesn't seem unreasonable. What's wrong with the system tonight?
The major concern here is that, again, the lack of water, and I'm sure we got plenty, sufficient water. It's pushing it down towards 56th Street. When we get down to those last 5 or 6 lots where it's way down and they're just kind of added to the end, where we've got a loop main, it gets further down, it gets pretty bad. We've got a church just below that has some water issues. We ended up having to sprinkle it pretty heavily in order to solve some of those issues. It's just terrible water down through there. Now, having said that, now we're at the point where we're on phase 2. I don't know if we could phase this so that we could get the water line done first before we could proceed with the rest of phase 2. That would guarantee that it would be getting done. We'd be moving towards that egress, that water main issue. The other thing is if we can get some assurances from the water department, the water main's gonna get built, it'll all go away.
Well, I think they're moving forward with it, but I don't know that we've crossed the two.
We're a year
timeframes.
away from getting houses
The
completed too,
question to you, Ed, is would you be comfortable with the planning commission approving this revised preliminary plat without these things in place?
Well, the issue, the phase 1's already approved, so that horse has got out of the barn, so I don't know how to fix that without, because this preliminary plat is just a minor change, really, if you look at it, it's just a few lots, just in some work where the access went. What I'd like to see them do is phase that access road and that hydrant, the main line, or at least the main line, into a phase, and then drop it into the next phase and get the rest of the buildings built. Because if they're gonna move on, it's fine. The problem is we're getting that point in the world where we got burned 10 years ago, where we ended up with half-built subdivisions, and some of these things just don't get built. Some of the later phases just don't get built.
That water main will be constructed in phase 2, and I can expedite it to where that's the first thing that we build in phase 2. So typically you cut in your streets and do your utilities after that, but that's something that we can expedite.
Okay, then the question becomes to planning commission, are you comfortable with this as it is presented?
Seeing that it's a preliminary plat, I don't have a problem with it.
You're gonna call for the vote?
I'll call for the vote.
Do we have any other comments?
Yeah, comments from the audience? Commission and the call for the vote, Mr. Cloud. Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is a
This is a
motion
motion.
subject to staff comments, right, that's right, I'm sorry. So you're making a motion to approve the preliminary plat subject to staff comments.
That's what he meant.
I heard that.
Where, just to be, because there was a lot, where are the staff comments exactly gonna be? Or are you gonna direct them to fix some things, or?
Well, I would assume the comments that we just brought up would be added to that list of comments of what needs to be done, and that means either the water main has to be extended or the modeling has to be done, and they're not gonna get building permits until all the water issues taken care of.
Yeah, at minimum, I'd like to see some flow tests, that we'd like to see some final flow tests once they go for the final plat, so we actually know where we're standing.
Okay.
And I guess I just have one more question. So where are the risks that we have a half-developed subdivision if there's issues with the water?
Well, phase 1, as it is now, is getting ready to be final platted. If they start construction on phase 2 and something changes, then where are we? That's the
Yeah,
question.
phase 2 consists of an 8-inch mainline extension that runs the length of 48th Street till it connects to a 6-inch, but still it's a developing community, and we're more comfortable with that 48 is gonna give it just enough oomph to get it over to 1,000 gallons per minute we need for a single-family dwelling. And these won't be huge houses either. So.
I guess that short answer is somewhat limited. I don't know how to summarize that.
Unfortunately, when you're predicting the future with
Yeah.
engineered systems, you just kind of have to, without doing a whole lot of computer modeling, you end up having to take some guesses, some educated guesses.
So we have a motion to approve it subject to staff comments with those comments added that we just talked about.
Second.
Second. Mr. David?
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin, Cloud, Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Can we follow up tomorrow with a revised set of comments and send it out to the planning commission members and to all the departments and to make sure we get everything we talked about today in writing? Okay, thank you.
Next is PP 2209, Grays Crossing. I guess
No,
we've already
we
tabled that one. Okay, RP 2210, Lake Road Estates, presented by Alan Reed and Associates.
You need to step out, the mic's not turned on.
Justin Cope with Allen Reed and Associates, proposing to combine two 0.34 acre tracts into one, just east of Springdale Country Club.
Staff comments?
And it's a replat, putting those
It's a
two lots
replat,
together.
yes.
That's why we couldn't just combine them at the staff level.
Planning only has standard comments for this.
Comments from the audience?
Need a motion in a second.
Need a motion and a second.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion, Mr. Colbert. Second. Second, Mr. Peters.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
If you want this to go to council next Tuesday evening, the ordinance needs to be in our office by Thursday morning at noon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Next is RP 2211, the Rocking W Ranch Edition, presented by Satterfield Land Surveyors.
I don't have the screen shared, but this is Jasmine with Satterfield Land Surveyors, and I have Jacob listening in as well. Just here to answer any questions or look over any comments that staff might have.
Staff comments?
Staff only has standard comments for this one. It's in our Springdale planning area.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? Be a motion, subject to staff comments?
Motion. Sorry, go ahead.
Motion, subject to staff comments. Motion, Mr. Peters.
Second.
Second, Mr. Culver.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Large-scale developments. L 2233 Powers of Arkansas Incorporated, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brandon Rush with ESI. This is a 9,000 square foot commercial development off of Kendrick Road. It's a 4-acre parcel. Happy to answer any questions.
Staff comments?
Commercial development? Is this in the industrial park?
It is.
Okay. Brandon, you said commercial development. Did you do commercial design standards?
Yeah, we meet commercial
Okay.
design standards.
Okay, just making sure.
Staff just has standard comments.
Engineering.
Okay, there's a couple engineering comments. Submit a signed and sealed drainage report to engineering. Correct the upper pond elevation notes. I think there's a copy paste because they're exactly the same for both ponds. And then show curb cuts and flumes as needed for parking lot drainage. I couldn't see how the drainage was getting from the parking lot to the ponds.
Can you show the elevations? Do we have those? Oh, there you go.
Any comments from the audience? To the commission? Motion is subject to staff comments.
So motion.
Motion, Mr. Cloud.
Second.
Second, Mr. David.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Excuse me, Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Go to L 22-36, Single Parent Scholarship Fund of Northwest Arkansas, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brandon Rush with ESI. This is a proposed 13,000 square foot office building for a local nonprofit, building a new headquarters in Springdale on a 1.4 acre tract, and happy to answer any questions.
Staff comments?
Currently, we have standard comments, as well as they will need to get the go-ahead from the Harbor Architectural Review Committee, which I've spoken with Brandon earlier today, and they are in the process of getting that done.
Any comments from the audience? To the commission? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Mr. Covert. Second, Ms. Peters.
Austin.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes. Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Next, we have Patton Industrial Park amended. L 22-37 with B 22-70, variance for reduction of drainage easement width, presented by Randy Ritchie.
Good evening. My name is Randy Ritchie. Be happy to answer any questions. But first of all, just a little background on this project. This was a large scale that was approved, constructed. Those three addresses you see there, 2075, 2087, 2095. Those buildings were constructed last year. And the owner wanted to add a 30 by 40 storage building. And he asked me to build it. And I assumed that he got the permit. He assumed I got the permit. Nobody got the permit. So that's why we're here. I apologize for that misunderstanding. But we have the two issues. We built a building on there that wasn't shown on the existing large scale. So we're amending the large scale to show the building. And it lies within what would theoretically be the 20-foot drainage easement around the detention pond. And we've met with staff, came up with this option where it's okay because there's such a vertical difference between the water surface, actual water surface, and where the building is. It's well out of the floodplain and floodway. So there you have it. We had a building that was built mistakenly without a permit. We're amending the large scale and trying to get the variance approved for the drainage easement.
Staff comments?
Staff comments have not been adequately addressed. Applicant was informed at the time of pre-application conference of the steps necessary to ensure that this project would be reviewed and placed on the Planning Commission agenda in a timely manner. However, over the course of this month's technical plat review cycle, applicant did not provide the minimum elements necessary to complete a review sufficient to be heard by the Planning Commission. These minimum elements include, but are not limited to, a professionally completed plan set reflecting the existing state of the property with landscaping plan, lighting plan, details page, etc., Staff recommends tabling of this project.
You be willing to table this till we address all those comments?
I think I misunderstood what we're doing. And if I did, that's on me. But all of the things that they're asking me to show have been built for over a year and inspected by the city. I mean, I can draw them, but it's all there. It was built, approved, buildings occupied, landscaping, parking, irrigation. It's all there, and city officials final inspected it and approved it. So I thought we were just addressing this building. So I apologize if I misunderstood that we needed to re-show all the stuff that had already been, a year ago built and approved. We can do that, but I just didn't realize that was going to be. I mean, whenever I got the staff comments, I replied back to them, hey, this stuff's all been built already for a year and you guys already inspected it. I don't know why we're rehashing that part. But whatever needs to be done, we're happy to do it.
Thank you, Rick. You got any more comments, Rick? That's all you got?
Katie, you want to address the encroachment on the easement?
Sure. So on detention ponds that are built on these facilities, we require a 20-foot drainage easement for maintenance. And it's also a setback from any buildings so that they are free from risk of flooding. Since this building was built within the drainage easement, we recommended that they apply for a variance to reduce the minimum 20-foot easement to 9 foot just for this location. We still have a full 20-foot easement as required around the rest of the pond, and we feel that that is satisfactory for maintenance purposes if necessary. And we did look at the difference in elevations, and this building does still meet the requirement to be elevated above the 100-year water surface elevation of that pond as well.
And you're assuming it's going to be storage only?
Yes.
It's not going to have utilities in it except power?
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay. That needs to be noted on here, that it can't be used for anything else but storage. How is the power to be, well, I can tell you what's coming up next is, next month will be a cell tower that's going to be located in this back entrance back here too. So we have another impact on this development, is why we were trying to get everything as accurate as we could get before we review a cell tower location to make sure that we don't have a conflict. And the information's just not there. Building inspection didn't do any inspections on this extra building, did they?
No, we put a stop work order on it, referred it to planning.
Okay,
For a
but the
large scale.
building, the
For-
building was completed,
Yes,
and it had
I
a,
have not been in the building. I don't know what they did inside the building. I
Okay.
just know.
and it had an
that the
extension
exterior
cord that
clear.
was running to it from another building when we were out there looking at it. So it's, I mean, we're just not sure what we've got. That's the problem. Especially with the cell tower coming in, we need to make sure that everything is like it needs to be if we're going to include that as the next amendment to this.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission?
So Katie, it looks like this building would add impervious area to the original development. Was the drainage study revised? And the other question that I have is, did the foundation for this building adjust that pond in any way? Did it encroach on the pond when they filled?
So there was a concrete slab that was existing on the property. So there was the impervious area taken into account. And then when we did have the pond certified, it was actually built a little larger than the plan showed. So we did request an updated drainage report that shows that this pond still functions as designed for this development. They will have to then, when we bring back the tower project next month, we'll need to see that included in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
guess this is I guess we go to the variance first, or, oh, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
just had a quick comment. He had mentioned the building department inspection. Fire department inspected the building. At the time, there was no extension cord. It was just an empty metal shell that was on a concrete slab, and we didn't have any issues with anything. I just wanted to clear that up.
Did you do that after it was brought to our attention that it was built or before?
I was called directly by Mr. Ritchie and went over and inspected the building. And it's some time back, and I assumed it had been approved.
Oh, okay.
The variance is for a reduction. I guess we go call for the vote for that. Anybody?
The variance would be a call for the vote.
Yeah, we're doing the variance first.
For the variance, call for the vote?
Yes.
Call for the vote?
Oh, call for Mr. Colbert.
Cloud? Compton?
No.
Covert?
No.
David? Parker?
No.
Peters?
Yes.
Tyler?
No.
Austin?
Fails 4-3.
No.
Five, no,
5-2.
five, no, 2, yes, it was 1 abstain.
Oh, one abstain. You're right.
Okay, so the variance doesn't pass, so we're gonna have to go back and you're gonna have to do something different. Okay? And you might want to address it with the revised one for the cell tower and see if we can get it all put together at one time with that one. Has it already been submitted? Did we get it? I'm sorry?
Yeah, it was submitted.
Okay, so we can go back and this'll come, the second revision, or how many of our revisions we're on will be at the next meeting.
How does that affect the large scale?
Well, it can't be approved because it approaches on the drainage easement and the variance wasn't approved. The variance can be appealed to city council. It has to be filed within 15 days in the city clerk's office and explain the reasons why you think it was in error, and it will be set to go to council the second meeting after it's been submitted. 'Cause we have to have time to get the minutes and stuff ready and the packet together if you want to appeal that decision. It has to be done in 15 days.
Can it be applied for
No.
here as part of the one that's coming next month?
If it's denied by council, it can't be reapplied for a year. So your best bet is to deal with all this with a revised, with the tower thing and talk about it then. I don't know what you're gonna do with the building to be able to get it out of that drainage easement.
Well, it can't be moved out of the drainage easement unless it's just torn down. That's just what we'll have to deal with if we don't. If the variance for the drainage easement ultimately fails, then the building has to be taken down.
Well, it failed. Your only way to get that changed is to appeal it to council.
I understand.
Okay.
All right, so the large scale is
Well, the
Tabled
large scale can't
slash-
meet the minimum requirements because you didn't get a variance to the.
Yeah.
To the drainage easement, so it'll have to be revised to show how you meet it. Or the variance has to be overturned, one or the other.
I got you. We'll see you next month for the cell tower.
Thank you. Next is L 2241, Profab Northwest Arkansas.
No, 39.
I wrote down in the wrong place here. Okay, thank you for setting this straight. Next is L 2239, Trickling Creek Warehouse, with a variance B 2266, variance for reduction of required parking spaces from 54 to 39, presented by Earth Plan Designs Alternatives.
I'm James Girth with EDA, representing this large scale. This property is a reconstruction of a burned down building that occurred about a year ago. So we're just bringing the LSD back. We're utilizing the same footprint of the building that was there. So if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Staff comments?
For planning, it's just standard comments. Oh, pardon, then the variance for the parking, yeah, reducing from 54 to 39.
Any comments from the audience?
Engineering comments?
To the
It's
commission?
nice to see that building cleaned up and something going back in that location. Yeah, it's been a couple of years,
Oh, has
at
it?
least 2 or 3 years, yeah. Do we have elevations? Did they submit elevations? So you can see what it's gonna look like? No, guess not. We do have a landscaping plan. We do have a lighting plan. But since it's industrial, it doesn't have to have elevations.
To the commission?
Curious what the purpose of the warehouse is?
The owner is a trucking company, and this is for storing stuff and leasing out space for storage.
Go with the variance first.
Can you elaborate on the variance request? You don't need that many spaces, and why don't you need that many spaces?
Correct. Based on what our owner has told us, he doesn't need the number required by the warehousing ratio for parking. I don't think originally it had that requirement on the building that was there, so we tried to fit where we could, as many as we could, parking spots.
How many employees do they have, do you know?
I do not know.
At
This
site?
is for some lease spaced areas as he leases it out to people.
So it's basically flex space
Pretty much.
warehouse? Yeah.
Flex space warehousing. Yes.
Yeah.
We have the variance for the reduction of required spaces. It'd be a call for the vote.
No, motion subject to.
No, for variance.
Oh, variance, I'm sorry. I was doing it all together.
Call for the vote. Mr. Covert?
Compton,
Yes.
Covert. David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud.
Passes 8-0, the variance. The large scale, be a motion.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Motion, Mr. Peters. Second, Mr. Covert.
Covert. David,
Yes.
Parker. Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud. Compton.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we get down to L 2241, Profab Northwest Arkansas East Expansion, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brandon Rush with ESI. This is proposed 10,000 square foot industrial building in the Springdale Industrial Park next to Profab's existing facility. There will also be a 1,600 square foot outbuilding, and happy to answer any questions.
Staff comments?
I just spoke to Brandon a little bit earlier also. We're missing the photometric plan on this, and we didn't have any elevations. So
Engineering?
Submit a signed and sealed drainage report.
Any comments from the audience? To the commission?
Just a quick question for my education. Is there a reason we get to this point without elevations? Am I missing something, or why don't we have elevations with this?
On this one, it's an industrial building. I don't think any elevations have been prepared on this project.
What
It's
do they
just-
do? What's the
um,
business? Manufacturing?
Yeah, it's going to be a metal building.
They don't have to do elevations.
Okay, thank you.
This will be a call for the vote. This will be a motion, please.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Peters,
Second.
second Mr. David.
David,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Cloud. Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to L 22-42, Beaver Water District Western Pump Station with a waiver, 22-11, waiver of street improvements on Miller Road. Presented by Rusty Combs.
Good evening, Rusty Cohen with Olson Engineering, 302 Millsap in Fayetteville. I'd be happy to answer any questions you got. A proposed pump station for Beaver Water, improvements to Miller Road. Also, we are subdividing northeast corner of the property to sell to Carroll Electric for the construction of a substation.
Can you explain a little bit what this pumping facility is? I don't think everybody knows what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, the pump station, it's part of a larger pipeline project, about 7 miles, taking water from existing Beaver Water over off Primrose and Lowell. 60-inch line that will come into this pump house, and then there's some future outtake pumps. And I think Springdale is the first one that would be built with this one. The other cities, Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers, also have some future connections in there as well. So you'll see some of that floor plan as well that has some future pumps for capacity.
What this does is help delivery of water and pressure on the west side of 49. Basically, yeah. We gotta get water over there so we can distribute it, right? Yeah. And then we'll have no access to Miller Road. Everything will be accessed off of whatever that road is, whatever the other road is.
No, it's Miller Road on the west side. There will
It's
be
just
access
Miller
on-
Road on the north side. It's not the Miller Road on the north side. There will be no access, right? And the road is being improved on the other side by the subdivision, so we'll get a small portion of the road built here.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission?
We have a couple staff comments.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. Frontage and perimeter landscaping is required in accordance with Chapter 56, and I believe the applicant intends to request a variance for the August Planning Commission meeting. And we have the waiver of street improvements on Miller Road, and the remaining are just standard comments.
Just a couple engineering comments as well. The outlet of the detention pond should be concrete pipe. Miller Road needs to be improved to master street plan standards. A waiver has been requested for a portion of Miller Road that it is not accessing the development from. And then please add required notes regarding stockpiling and erosion control.
Any comments from the audience? To the commission? The waiver.
The waiver is a
Is a
recommendation to council. Council is the only one that can actually waive the street improvement.
What portion of Miller Road are we waiving the improvements to?
Where it turns back to the west.
So everything that fronts the pump station we're doing, everything that is up where Carroll's gonna
Yeah.
be, we're not doing. Okay.
You're actually building it through Carroll's access point onto Miller Road, and then when you turn the corner, they're not doing anything. on
Okay,
that.
so the east-west section of Miller is not being improved?
Correct.
North south is? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. That's what they're proposing, yes.
It's a motion to forward to council recommendation.
Motion to recommend to council for approval.
Motion, Mr. Peters. Second by Mr. Colbert.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes?
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Vote on the large scale. Be a motion. Subject to staff comments.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Motion, Mr. Culver.
Second.
Second by
Mr.
Mr. Peters.
Peters,
Yes?
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker.
Motion passes 8-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, goes to council on the 26th.
Next is L 22-43 Chandler Village.
Before it escapes us, we have the gentleman that was not here earlier when we were on the first page. I think it was R 2244. Is that correct? So whenever you guys are ready for that one, he'll
When we
be
get
ready
done
for
with,
you.
let's finish this one and then we can go back. I'll take all the Larskas.
We'll stay with L 22-43 Chandler Village. Variances B 2269 for screening requirements, B 2268 for reduction of parking spaces from 150 to 111, presented by ESI.
I guess Blake with ESI again, going for the record tonight 4 times. I barely beat out my coworker. So there's that. This is the 3rd time this has been before y'all in slightly different variations. The first time it went from Oak Grove Road all the way over to 56th Street. Crossing the creek was undesirable, so it was brought back before y'all again with 40 units, didn't cross the creek, and then finally, since that last time, this is hopefully the last iteration of this, that additional acreage on the north side of the creek was purchased from that landowner so that the pond could be put over there, and it had us add a few extra units here. So now with this proposed layout, we have 59 total units, 34 of which are 2-bed, 25 of which are 3-bed. Let's see, as y'all mentioned, we're asking for a couple of variances. Both of those variances have been approved at least once, if not twice, on the previous iterations of this. Perimeter landscaping variance is due to the existing utilities in the area and not being able to plant trees in Springdale Water's easement. And then the variance to the parking, obviously how code is written, the garage spaces, and, if you can't count the spaces in front of the garage and the garage itself. So I believe there's more than adequate parking on this development because many of the ones on the east-west stretch have, or all the ones on the east-west stretch have garages on them. So I believe more than ample parking and, excuse me, and just discuss perimeter landscaping variance. Few comments related to the staff report is mainly under building and fire, comments number 4. When we do make a recommendation of this, if it is for approval, I'd like to wordsmith that one. We've been working with Ed and think we have a solution in place to where we are meeting the requirements from code of the 750-foot rule and the 150-foot. And if we can rewrite number 4 to state that, if Ed's happy, it doesn't have to be sprinkled or however wordsmithed, and y'all are probably better at making those kind of changes than I am, but I think we have a good solution in place that we've already sent over to him for his blessing, and he blessed it earlier today. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Staff comments?
In addition to standard comments, perimeter landscaping is required. Blake mentioned that a moment ago, and a variance has been requested, as well as parking requirement of 150 spaces has not been met, and a variance has been requested for reducing that from 150 to 111.
Engineering comments, submit a floodplain development permit application. And please add a note that the detention pond shall be constructed with phase 1 of the development. Revise the streetlight notes. And please ensure that the amenities have a hard, smooth surface to enable full access to users. So this does not just include a sidewalk near it, but a sidewalk that goes to and underneath the amenity, for example, a picnic table, so that it can be used by everyone.
Building inspection has some comments.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to wordsmith this. We've had discussions earlier this afternoon on this. The problem was this subdivision was over 750 feet on a single dead-end access. When that occurs, we want the street to be wider and the hydrants to be closer. And sometimes we want to have to sprinkler the buildings if we have to. We're trying to avoid sprinkling the buildings. We understand that's a burden for the builder, especially in the market here where nobody sprinklers single-family dwellings. So what we came up with is that this is going to have to be resubmitted, not to this board. There's some minor changes. They're going to have to smush it just a little bit. They're going to have to move their buildings closer together. They're going to run them a bit tighter. Of course, it'll all have to be approved by staff at that point. At no point should any building, here's the wordsmithing, is at no point should any building be more than hundred and 50 feet on a route out of the route around the outside of the building from the 750-foot access road, and the access road shall not be over, the required access road shall not be over 750 feet. Pushed, I haven't seen the drawings, I don't know if they can do it or not, but it's gonna be tight to fit it all in there and get it all in there. They need to make up about 40 feet, so it's gonna be tight to fit it in there.
So were you counting any of that space between the buildings as part of your open space to meet the open space requirements?
Yes, ma'am. But we have more than double the open space requirements, so we more than meet and exceed it right
It
now.
meets the requirement is within a distance from all of the structures?
Yes.
Because you're putting all the open space on the south end, from those that are on the north end, how do you meet the distance to the open space with, if you're,
Like I said, we have more than double what's required by code, so.
that wasn't the question. The question is not, do you have too much? How do you meet the spacing requirement? Because it has to be a certain distance from all of the units for it to count as open space. Did you recalculate that?
I did not recalculate that. I think that's something that we can work with staff and Ed on after this to make sure everybody's happy.
And I forgot to mention, they're making the two buildings on the far west side, they're making them smaller. They're removing a unit from each of those buildings, and that allows it. The route gets shorter. Basically, you have to have 150 feet around the building from each point. So that's 300 feet all the way around the building till it gets to the east end of that T, if that kind of explains something of what they're trying to do. It's going to be tough, but they can do it.
So when phase one is completed, there's no amenities that goes with it? Or is the amenities to be built with phase one?
Amenities and the drainage will be built with phase one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the density now?
Sorry. Thing rotated. You got 59 units. So currently the density, I think it's shown on the plan. Sorry, my iPad's acting funny on me.
It's not on here, or I would have already picked it.
It's under the density bonus. It was like 9.3 units per acre, kind of in the top middle of the page.
The number's 59 now, and what was it on the last iteration?
40.
40. So we're up 19 units, and we're down 39 parking stalls. Walk me through that.
Here, I have the old set as well. Let me double check the parking quote. Try to. Before there was 112 parking spaces. And now we have, sorry, computer technology here is
So
lagging
now
a
you're
little.
gonna have 111 with more units.
Yes, but more of those units have garages and the stalls out front as well. So there's more than enough parking. I mean, of that, only the final two buildings there on the west end actually have, standard parking. The other ones have garages and parking in front of their units.
Parking in front of the units?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm not sure where I see those. If those are paved drives in front of each of the garages, where do you get parking along the street?
That's what I'm saying. That there's, that was loud. There's garages for each unit, which y'all don't let us count towards the number, and then there's parking in front of the garages.
So you're talking about in the driveway?
Yes, sir.
So if you have visitors, they don't have any place to park except those few units that are parking spaces that are at the end of the street.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're reducing it down to adding units but no parking spaces.
You're counting garage space as parking.
Not on here.
Yeah.
You can't do that per code. And that's why I'm saying there's plenty of parking. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buildings. So you got 50 buildings there that have garages. So yes, we're only providing 111 spaces, but there's 50 garage units, and then there's room for 50 more cars in front of those garages for visitors.
So on our paperwork, you just said that we had 112 spaces on the last iteration. So looking at this, we're going to 111, we're only dropping one space.
Yes, sir.
But on our paperwork, it shows 150. Any clue on how we went from 112 to 150?
Oh, sorry, that's a little confusing. So it says parking spaces required is 150, and that's based off of the unit type number of bedrooms. And then right under that is parking spaces provided on our drawing shows 111.
How many were required last time? I vaguely remember this one coming up, but I can't remember if we
I
did
don't
anything.
remember how many was required last time, but they got a substantial variance on the number of parking spaces to get down to 111.
Sounds like we approved 112 last time.
Prior to there being 39 more units added.
Where's your other parking count? I know the spaces, the dwelling units on various far end. Where are the other spaces? Where are you counting those?
The other spaces are the driveways in front of each unit. So there's one space in front of each unit, I believe, is how that's calculated.
Are all of the garages a single car garage?
I believe so. I can pull that up real quick.
So you're required to have 2 parking spaces per unit, right? So you have one inside the garage and one in front of it. But you don't have 2 parking spaces provided outside the garage for each one of the units.
Let me see.
Outdoor
Yeah.
surface parking spots plus however many.
I remember there being concern about this would push people into street parking and other things when it came through the first time, so this seems more aggressive.
And you have how many 2-bedroom units?
On
And
this,
you
we have
2 and 3-bedroom units, right?
Yes, ma'am. We have 34 2-bedroom units and 25 3-bedroom units.
So you're anticipating renting some of these to families, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But if you happen to have 3 people who are roommates and they've got 3 cars, where's that third car going?
I understand where you're coming from on that.
So, no, I get it, and I appreciate that. I guess my question is, knowing that, why are we asking for 39 stalls to be reduced when we know we don't have enough now?
Sure. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. I don't have a good answer for you on that. I mean, I think people are going to have to park in front of the driveways, park in the garages. There's the spaces there on the western end. We're using every single square inch we can to provide as many parking spaces as we can.
Or another way to look at that is you're putting too many units on too small of a space. It's the other side of that.
Sure.
I can only speak because I'm just one vote, but I would tell you I'm really uncomfortable with the parking count. We've all been to really nice establishments that just didn't have enough parking. And if I happen to have a family that fills up their garage, I may be the only one that's ever done that, but can't get both cars in. But when you do that, the cars are coming out. And there's only one place for them to go, and that's the parking field that's in front of it, which we've already got one of the other 2 bedrooms taking, and then you're out in the street. So I would tell you my struggle is going to be with the parking when it comes to voting on this.
Does anybody have any problem with the screening requirements? Because I think we went through that pretty carefully last time. There's some real reasons to not do that perimeter screening on it's the south side, right? Okay.
Any comments from the audience? Any more comments from the commission?
So my question to you is, do you want the planning commission to take action on the variance tonight, knowing that your only recourse is to appeal it to council? If it's denied, you can't ask for it again in a year.
I'd like to hear, I guess, the take from the commission on who has questions about the parking and it moving forward.
Well, you realize they don't have to do that. All they have to do is vote.
Yes, ma'am.
You
I
got the
totally
variance on the
understand.
table.
Sure.
Okay?
Can we take them separately?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd prefer that. We'll start with the screening requirements. B 2269 be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for Mr. Colbert.
68 is the screening.
Screening, yes. Correct? Yes.
It says 69 on my cheat sheet.
Well, it should have been brought down. That goes here.
Right here, this says 69 right there.
68 is the screening requirement.
Yeah.
69 is the
Yeah, that's,
parking spaces.
okay. That one's,
Okay.
it's wrong.
All right. It's whichever one is the screening requirements, okay?
Okay,
We'll fix the number.
okay.
Okay, so this.
Variance for the screening requirements.
Okay.
And
You gotta
call for a vote, Mr. Colbert.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Variance passes 8-0. Next is variance for reduction of parking spaces from 150 to 111.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote, Mr. David.
Austin,
Yes.
Cloud,
No.
Compton,
No.
Covert,
No.
David,
No.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
No.
Tyler.
No. It fails 6-2.
You have the right to appeal it to city council. You have to file within 15 days in the city clerk's office and state why you think the planning commission decision was in error, notify the adjacent property owners again. This puts us in a situation where the large scale can't be, it doesn't meet the requirements unless you're willing to take a building or something off, and then that's a modification of the
Sure.
large scale. So we'll have to put that on hold until you get the variance, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Next is Board of Adjustment. Start with B 20. Oh, we need to go back. Yeah, page 1.
Oh, yeah.
Page 1. R 22-44.
Good evening, my name is Eduardo Velasquez.
Okay, what, which one are we
It's
doing?
R 22-44, Augustine and Maria Lopez, 633 Sanders Avenue, C1 to C2, presented by Eduardo Velasquez.
No, it's 20, it's our 2244, yeah. Okay, you want staff comment?
Yes, staff comment.
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates neighborhood commercial use for the area. The current zoning is in keeping with that comprehensive land use plan, and the rezoning request is not recommended for approval.
Any comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? This will be, go ahead.
Do you have any comments to what her comment was? She's basically saying she doesn't recommend approval. Do you have anything to say that might sway us?
I guess, question why?
A C2 zone allows for a lot heavier type of commercial development than a C1. C1 was approved several years ago to create a buffer to the C2 that is to the west of it, and the residential development and the trails that's to the east of it. I don't see anything that's changed in that area that would recommend that it changes from a C2 to a C1, from a C1 to a C2.
I would just like to make a comment. This building is in the floodway, so it is very limited on improvements that can be done to the building and to the property. So keeping in mind that you want to change the zoning, you might want to come and talk to us about what can be done in this property within our floodplain ordinance as well.
Guess that's it, thank you.
Do you wish to table this and discuss it with other people, or?
No, because I was in the process of trying to buy the location, so I wanted to get a little bit more information before purchasing it. So I guess rezoning it was one of the main ones. I know the flood issue, but I just wanted to just get a little bit of a.
So I think the one
ideas.
thing they're offering you is the opportunity to table it for tonight and get a chance to sit down and talk with the city about what other options you may have, so that you don't have to just walk away from it altogether. But that's your call. If you want to do that, I think we can afford you that time. If you don't, we can simply vote on it and move through, and then you can move on to some other property if you wish. But it's just an opportunity for you if you want to talk with the city a little more about it.
You know what? That'll be fine. I guess we could table it.
Okay.
Table it.
That's first.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can move on to.
Excuse me.
On page.
Page 4.
It's the only.
B 2267, Starbucks on Elm Springs Road, presented by Stonebridge Construction LLC.
Good evening. My name's Matt Reese, and I'm with Sign Studio. And my client, the presenter, is Stonebridge Construction, and they're on Zoom, so I want to make sure they can hear us because they're gonna want to chime in as well. And then their client is Starbucks, and this is about the property at 847 North 48th Street in Springdale. As everyone's probably seen, current construction of this new Starbucks is underway in that C5 district. Tonight, we would like to request the visibility variance for a non-flashing 60-foot pylon sign to be located at this property. The freestanding pylon will be the exclusive signage of this property. There's no plans at this time for a monument sign, so that's why this 60-foot pylon or pole sign is very important. Prior to construction, Stonebridge Construction and myself, Sign Studio, had done some research, and I guess there's some confusion as to a 30-foot pylon or a 60-foot, and that's kind of why we're here tonight to ask for the variance and consideration for the 60-foot. I guess the ordinance changed at some point, and so that's why Walmart, McDonald's, Panda Express, everyone else around there is 60-foot, and so that's what we're asking for tonight and here for comments.
Comments?
The amendment to the ordinance was done with visibility districts around each of the corridors and lowered the signs at each of these intersections after those things went in. And so that's why it takes a variance now to get it to 60.
Any comments from the audience? To the commission? Let's do a call for the vote. Is that right?
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Austin.
Cloud,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
No.
David,
No.
Parker.
No.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Passes 5-3. You can build your sign.
All right, thank you for your
You get a
time.
permit from the building inspection
We
department.
will move to that phase. Thank you very much for your time.
And we got one to go back to.
Yeah, we can.
It's PP 2207 from page 2. LEX Estates.
Yes, I'm Paul Sims with Swope Engineering, here to represent LEX Estates. I think they're calling it Lex Estates. It's 19 lots at the corner of West Graham Road and Robbins Road. And I think staff is familiar with this. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on it. Thank you.
Staff comments?
Planning was down to standard comments for this preliminary plat.
Engineering comments, the developer is required to improve the abutting streets for which a waiver has been requested. And please show modified curb on the street sections where it is being used. It was kind of confusing to see where modified curb was proposed and where it wasn't.
Yes, we can clarify that. We're going to use modified curb inside the subdivision and standard curb on the on the local roads that it abuts, but we'll make that more clear on the plans.
Well, it takes a variance to do a modified curb inside the subdivision. You can't do that just by design.
Okay. Well, if we,
I
I can discuss that with staff if,
That's what we looked up.
On a low volume local street, is that what they're using? And
Yes.
it allows a modified curb?
Yes. So it's within the subdivision only.
Okay. I stand corrected. I don't do streets, thank goodness. And did you file for the waiver of street improvements on? Yeah, Robbins Road?
yes, on Robbins Road, there was existing asphalt that exceeded the recommended width by the street plan. So we did ask for a waiver to not adjust that road. But we are going to widen and improve West Graham.
Okay, did we get a filed waiver Because there's not one on the agenda. No. How did you request it?
Oh, I did. I thought we had a waiver in for that. I didn't realize we hadn't got that to you.
Okay, so we don't have a waiver request. Preliminary plat can be approved without that waiver request. You just have to come back and ask for it.
Yes,
And were
yes,
you
we can do that.
curb and gutter on Robbins?
I'm sorry, on Robbins Road, we're actually, it currently exceeds the width that the city would ask for the master street plan. So we're going to, as part of that waiver, ask to not do any work on that road. And we are going to improve West Graham, and we are going to provide curb and gutter on that one. It's the street to the north.
Okay, you want to do curb and gutter on Graham, but you don't want to do curb and gutter on Robbins? That's what you're saying?
Yes,
And no sidewalk?
correct.
Okay, you're gonna have to put that in writing. Okay?
Okay,
Let me
we'll,
give you my point of view. Why would you not do curb and gutter on Robbins? If the street is wide enough, all you need to do is put in curb gutter and drainage and sidewalks on that street. How do you handle the drainage on there?
well, yes, we will add that curb and gutter, and we'll get that change made to the plans and get that back in front of you. I agree with you on that point. We should have that to deal with the drainage on there.
Okay, so there'll be no street waivers then?
Possibly for the width. I'll work that out with the staff though. I'll ask them how they
You're gonna
want
have
to handle
hear
that. And
back
we're happy
anyway.
to.
We're not gonna hear it tonight. We need to sit down and talk about that one.
Yes, we
No,
can
it's very
discuss Robbins Road with you.
So we're gonna vote on any comments from the audience? State your name and address.
Stacy Wyatt, 4675 Robbins Road, Springdale. So we're the existing house there in the middle cutout, and this was our family farm for over 100 years until the family sold it. He's got how many lots? It has no city sewer. It's septic.
They are getting sewer to it.
So when and why have we not been notified of that?
Well,
Because
they
we're
are-
on a septic and the house being built next to us, that Cesar de Garza owns all this land, and he has also got it on a septic. So,
The subdivision that is being proposed will have sewer extended to it before they can, and the water and sewer has to be in, and the street has to be in before the final plat can be approved, before they can sell any lots.
so will he offer us, are we being offered the option to go on city sewer as well?
You'll have to talk to the developer to see if it gets close enough to get into it. He is providing sewer to his subdivision. He doesn't have to extend it beyond his subdivision, but it may be that can be worked out. You need to get with the developer and his engineer and see if you can work that out.
Okay, and as far as, thank you for the comments about the gutters and the sidewalks, because Cesar filled in the ditch, and so my property floods now.
He will have to deal with the street improvements with curb gutter and sidewalks and the drainage along the street, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Any other comments from the audience? Commission? This will be motion staff comments.
Second. Or my bad, sorry.
You want the motion?
You'll do the motion first. Okay. And do both though.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Motion of Mr. David.
I'll second it unless Mr. Davies wants to.
Second of Mr. Cole.
You ready to go home?
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin, Cloud, Compton.
Passes 8-0. Okay, that brings us down to
Thank you.
planning director's report.
I did remember to do one this time. It hasn't been as bad of a circus as it has been in the past, but, council approved the replats for, Railroad Edition and Parker's Place that was submitted to them. They approved the, rezonings that were submitted in both months. They approved or overturned the planning commission's decision on denying the variance request on Raymond Lane, and they overturned the planning commission's denial of the rezoning for the PUD on Sharp Road? Brown Road, East Brown Road. Yes, they approved both of those. That's pretty much, let me see if I got anything else. That's pretty much it. Planning Commission work session in July. We are working with the consultants on the downtown master plan. If we get to the point where we're ready to bring the revised master plan to the city council, that would be on Monday night, the 18th, and we would like to see if Planning Commission could join council that night so we can make one presentation to both groups at the same time. So if we have a work session in July, I would recommend that we have it on the 18th and we do it that night with council. If that doesn't happen, because we're still working through some elements, I don't know that we're gonna have it already by that time, but that's what my recommendation would be for the July work session.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock. Oh, no. Council committee meets at 5:30. It will be at 5:30 in here. Council committee meeting is at 5:30.
Zoom be available?
Zoom will be available, yes, it usually is, okay? And I don't have anything else.
Okay. And to that, we got an announcement from Mr. Ben Peters.
I just wanted to tell the commission that it's been my pleasure to work with you over the last few years, but this evening will be my last planning commission. I've agreed to join the staff of the city, so therefore I'm not eligible to be on the planning commission. So thank you for the years of help and support.
Thank you. You did a great job.
He's not going away, you're still gonna see him.
And with that, anybody got a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned.